What's up, guys? Today's movie review is perhaps the most controversial film of the entire year. Maybe the most controversial film of the last couple of years. I mean, definitely more controversial than Joker. Cuties. I saw it. A lot of people, and I come from a very conservative background, and a lot of the people I know are very conservative in their viewpoints on life, and how you probably describe if you were American, very right wing in terms of believing and thinking. And a lot of people would criticize me for seeing it because they think that I shouldn't have to do any of that, like to get that message across. Okay, the movie's very basic. I'll go into the plot and then I'll give my views about it. So the plot is a young Senegalese French girl moves into a new neighborhood with her family. It's just her and her mom and her little brothers, and she's very fundamentalist. They go to church, they pray, and all of that. So she's in a new neighborhood. Her dad's not in the picture because he went to Senegal. Um, Part of the story, you find out that the dad actually remarried and has left and is part of a polygamous relationship, and has sort of just left the wife and kids and want them to sort of accept that fate when he returns back with his new wife. So that's one thing going. And so as a result of trying to escape this, the little girl also witnesses that there are other girls in her neighborhood who live more liberal lives, dancing and twerking and all of this. And so she decides to befriend them. So she comes from this timid, shy young woman to meeting this group of girls who are completely different, opposite to what she believes and what she is in, was raised with. Sorry, and then she completely lives and starts exploring dancing and music videos. She steals an older relative's phone and then starts getting into the social media. And then there's one clip where they're watching like older dancers, and then they show that they have more likes. So they're preparing for a dance competition. They decide, well, if they're getting more likes for that sort of dancing, then maybe we should do it ourselves. And then, long story short, is she dresses differently. She starts stealing money from her mom. She just becomes a way worse person. And a scene in the film that hasn't been mentioned at all by anyone is in regards to a retaliation to this, is it gets to the point that she starts attacking other students. Like one time she took a picture of her crotch and puts it on. Like they don't show her crotch or anything necessarily, but you know what's implied. And then at school she gets made fun and called a slut, and so she like stabs a boy's hand for calling her a slut, but she was the one who did it and posted it online. And then there's another scene where her friends are afraid of this persona that she's become, her dancing, twerking 11-year-old friends. I forgot to say that all the kids in the movie are supposed to be 11. And so they tell her, you can't be part of our dance crew anymore. And then she still wants to be a part of the dance crew, and she pushes and nearly kills another kid, in hopes to go and join the dance crew at this finale performance. And in the finale towards the end of the movie, as she's dancing, and there's this horrendous scene where they're all like twerking and dancing as worst as they can. Well, it's not as worst as they can, but like it's basically WAP performed by 11-year-olds. WAP performed by 11-year-olds. Yeah. So picture Cardi B's WAP video, and that's performed by 11-year-olds. That's pretty much the scene. And then she has this sort of an awakening as she's dancing. She just has a moment where it hits her, and it's a prayer. It's like a prayer from one of the elders, like from her religion, just sort of hits her, and she realizes that she's become a horrible monster in the result. She stabbed the kid. She's stolen money. She's dressed like pretty much a hoe, and all of this. And then it just sort of hits her that she's become a complete monster as a result of all this engagement of social media and the internet and all of that. And so she just runs off home crying in her dance outfit. And when she gets home, she decides not to attend. So her dad, the one who had cheated on her mom and married again, they were actually celebrating the wedding. And towards the very end of the film, she just goes home and says, Mom, I don't want you to go to this wedding. And she's like, I don't want to go. So at the very final scene of the film, she's just dressed up normally as a kid would, just sweater and just what kid would wear. And she goes outside, and there's a wedding happening, obviously, but she just goes outside and plays. Which I think overall, the message of the film is exactly against the sexualization of children. And I get the frustration. I get how people be like, well, you didn't need to watch that movie to get that message. I get that. And coming from a very religious background with so many people in my faith who definitely denounce that, and I agree with them, like I denounce that, would probably like, oh, would Jesus watch that? I was like, Jesus has seen a lot of us do a lot of crap. Jesus has seen a lot of us do a lot of bad things. And is it really necessary to have the film? Well, none of us would be having these conversations if the society that we're a part of didn't create these. I agree with the arguments that they didn't need, like it was exploiting kids and whatnot. But if you're making those kind of arguments and yet you still allow your kids on TikTok, or you watch rap videos and like it, or that you try to twerk, and if you're saying cancel Netflix and yet you didn't say that when they had 365 days, the movie, which I didn't watch, or other worse off movies on their channel and streaming service, if you say that and you've seen porn, if you are denouncing the film and yet you let your little kids dress up in similar ways that these girls are dressed up and think it's cool, like, are you really against the message of the film? Are you really against pedophilia? Like, essentially what I'm calling out here is the hypocrisy of society. And there have been so many personal attacks on the director, who actually made the film because she came across a group of young kids dancing in such a way, 11-year-olds, and then she's like, wow, this is not what society is. I get that the medium is disturbing, and then people are like, you didn't need to make that in order to realize that that is bad. I get that, but none of us would be having this conversation if it was at that point. For me, I think that the showcasing of these young women, and to me, because I'm not a pedophile, and some of you might come and say, "But you watched the movie," and like, you don't know me. Those who know me will know me. I think that exploitation, like, I didn't feel any sort of sexual reaction to watching this film. So for someone like me, it's not a problem. I could see how it could influence someone. For someone like me, purely and objectively viewing it as like, okay, what is this piece of like of social commentary trying to teach me? It's the same that I take. It's the same mentality I take when I watch something like Parasite. It's like, okay, I'm not going to choose what is right or wrong just yet. I will let the medium do its part, and I will decide as with my reaction and my actions whether or not this is wrong or not. So with my strict Christian ethical background, I would say that to have filmed these young ladies is completely wrong. To get the message, but the argument could also be said, but that's the society that we live in right now. That's a really loud part. And there will be critics into this video, and to be honest, I don't care, because I really don't care what you have to say if you've seen porn. I really do not care what your opinion is necessarily about what is right or wrong about this movie if you have participated in a society that's created it. And there's been an argument, like people have come up to say, like, well, do you need to show, do you let your kids watch rape scenes in order to know that rape is wrong, or do you need to do drugs in order to know that drugs is wrong? No, we can learn from others. But also, some people know that's wrong because they did those things. I guess overall, if you really are troubled by cuties, the best thing that I reckon you should do is just to look internally. I'm all about that. I'm all about personal accountability. I'm not gonna raise my hand and say like, this is wrong, you're wrong, blah blah blah. Director should be. I would. Some people even said director should be killed, or anyone involved in this should be shot. Like, oh, now murder's okay. Is that what you're saying? Like, when you take things to the extreme for self-righteousness and forget how you contribute to that, you just it's a slippery slope. Essentially, Cuties is a conversation in slippery slopes. Okay, given as soon as you allow a movie like this to be shown in a very public mainstream domain, maybe that opens rooms for other movies. I don't disagree that that might happen, but if you also ignore this, then you're maybe ignoring the problem. Like, trying to have a commentary on Cuties and deciding what's right or wrong, you will know what's right. But trying to decide that for the rest of the world is extremely difficult. There is no one answer. My answer is Jesus will come and solve it, or Jesus will try and solve it, and we can all participate. But I guess if you're a critic of Cuties, and this is the call it that I'm trying to make, reflect on yourself. What is it about it that disturbs you? You could go and try and cancel Netflix, but if you just want to cancel Netflix now, and yet you've been watching a lot of immorality and drug use and all of that, and not having a single problem with a murder in a film, like, come on, that's so hypocritical. The disturbance in Cutie has to start from you as the audience or viewer, and then doing something about yourself. Because if you think it's cool to watch Beyonce flaunt her stuff, and it's like, what does Beyonce have to do with it? That's the culture it creates. Cuties' entire message is when you let your kids be raised by the internet, that's what it produces. If that abhors you, then you do something about it. Okay? So now you all of a sudden are enraged and caring about 11-year-olds all the way on the other side of the world, and your kids are on their TikToks. Focus on what's in your own backyard. Focus on what you're watching. If you've seen porn and you like have a problem with that, if you watch a lot of essentially, if you're gonna be righteous all the way. Otherwise, you're just a hypocrite in the message, and then we're part of the problem. And I don't deny I am part of the problem. You're part of the problem. But if you try to be self-righteous about it and think that the problem lies somewhere else without having to do something within your own backyard, then we'll continue to have films like Cuties that have to come straight to our faces and show us that this is us. And we're like, oh, society is not the problem. Why are you blaming society? Come on, mate. We live here. This is what we have to deal with. This is the world we've created. We've allowed so many things to go unchecked for so long. If you're on Facebook and you're against this, why aren't you against Facebook? They allow pedophiles to have pages on there. I don't see anyone saying cancel Facebook just yet. Come on, the hypocrisy is all over. If you really care about kids, start with your own kids. Start with yourself. This movie was for adults. Because we are responsible for the world that we create. Whether you see it or not, that's entirely up to you. How you view it, that is entirely up to you as the viewer, what you take it. My main takeaway is I need to look at my society, the society that I've lived in, have become so desensitized with so many video games. My nephew, my nieces, like, they're watching gory killings, and I would have to like, why are you watching that? And I'm like, oh, I found it, it's cool, whatever. Like, there's so much stuff that our kids are engaged with. If you have a problem with Cuties, what you really have a problem with is yourself. So go home, check yourself out. Don't try to preach and go all harping up. If like just essentially, I don't want to say I'm glad Cuties was made, because it's sad that it was made to reflect the sign of the times, but we're responsible for that film. That's the main message of this whole review. Is if you're disturbed by that, inner reflect and start some changes, because the society we lived in, the society we created, the society where we wonder how many people like or love or share or agree with us or make us more popular, we are part of the society. And as long as you're using social media like I am, I know the more I use it, I'm part of the problem. We are the problem that we see in Cuties. If you don't see that, then I'm sorry for your bias and your self-righteousness.